enough.
Who is it going to start? Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Toffee Blues. I'm Callum, and I'm joined here by Alex. And today we are going to be going over the Everton versus Manchester City game from yesterday. Everton lost 1-0, but I think it's a game where we look at that in hindsight and say it wasn't really that bad of a loss. Obviously, points-wise, you look at it and go, oh, well, that's not a very good thing. But, you look at it, and I think it's probably up there for one of the better Everton performances of the season. I think we'll just start there. What did you think of the performance overall, Alex?
Yeah, definitely. You come away with a kind of weird feeling because it almost doesn't feel like a loss because there were so many positives. And I think bouncing back from Southampton the way we did after such a poor performance away from home, and putting in such a strong performance, especially defensively, I thought we looked very organised at the back for pretty much the whole game. We were unlucky to concede when we did. And so yeah, it was really positive. I thought the team had much more of a settled look, and I thought the confidence was a lot. There was a lot more confidence in the side and stuff. And so yeah, it was kind of a weird feeling really because, like you say, there were so many positives. It didn't even feel that much like a loss really.
Yeah, we went into the game. Obviously, I can imagine everyone was fearing the worst, especially after the Southampton game. It seemed like, especially with like Leeds losing 6-0 to Liverpool, I had a lot of friends saying to me, well, there you go, is where you lose 7-0 now because Man City have had enough. But we came into this, we were defensively resolute for a lot of the game, which is probably the thing that surprised me the most, is how defensively solid we were and how much we were, almost forcing Man City to reset time and time and again. But, we went into it with fight and with passion, something we've been begging for from these players for months now, ever since Rafa. And I feel like this is the first sign, really, to say that maybe we are a lot better than the position that we're in the table.
Yeah, definitely. I think what a big positive for me was that I think we had a very clear plan going into the game. I think first off we kind of caught them out with just how aggressive we were, pressing them hard at the pitch, and I think you could argue we had the better chances in that first half. I thought a lot of the time the ball was in their area, and you think about the chance that Kenny had, and there was a chance where Richarlison had where he hit it straight at Ederson as well, and obviously Gordon's free kick. I think in the first half we probably had the better of the chances, and I think we were kind of hoping we would nick a goal and then have something to defend in the second half, where we kind of sat back a bit more, because we'd obviously used up a lot of energy in that first half. And so we had to kind of sit back a bit more in the second half and try and just kind of soak up the rest of the City pressure, which obviously intensified after to getting a rollicking at half time. So yeah, that was really positive to see. And yeah, like I thought we looked a lot more organised and yeah, like you say, very resolute at the back.
Yeah, I think, we really went into this game, like I said, and I'll probably say countless times throughout this, nervous of what could happen, especially with the teams around us in such good form, Burnley, Newcastle, all the teams that are in and around us, besides, ironically, the teams above us, which are Leeds and Brentford, all the teams below us caused a real problem. But then you look at the way we can perform against Manchester City, and you wonder, it makes you look back at hindsight and go, wow, where was this? Because, even players like Mason Holgate, a player I've never really claimed to be a big fan of, and never will really claim to be a big fan of, was, in my opinion, really impressed, especially when it came to bringing the ball out from the back, in a sense, is where he looked comfortable on the ball, especially in the ability to transition between defence and midfield. He looked very comfortable. I think that's the same with Seamus Coleman, Coleman, especially under Lampard, I feel like is someone who deserves a lot more praise than he's been getting, really.
Yeah, definitely that. It was reassuring to see, because City's pressing is so aggressive and they push up when they lose the ball, and that can overwhelm the best of teams. But a lot of the time, I just thought we looked so calm, and like you say, Holgate in particular was picking out passes a lot better than he has been in recent weeks and stuff like that. And like you say, really positive to see. And Coleman, of course, yeah, like you say, no one really had that bad of a game. I thought everyone put in a shift and we pretty much matched City throughout the game, and it was just a moment of madness, really unfortunate. Little, you have to call it a mistake, I think, but it was unfortunate the way it was, and that was the difference in the end. So yeah, I thought we were quite unlucky not to at least get a draw out of it, to be honest.
Yeah, I think we were extremely unlucky, and I think It's something we'll probably go into more detail on as we go on and we get further on in the game. But the one big thing that stood out really was something that wasn't in our control and an opportunity that we should have scored, being given a penalty, but weren't. I think we'll go more into that later. But it does show that, we should have had a point against City, maybe even arguably 3 if you look at some of the chances. I think Sky Sports were over-exaggerating the Richarlison chance, but also a more confident Richarlison may score that. I think we had a few chances where we really could have put City to the sword and, we didn't. But I think this is a game where even though we lost, it's very hard to pick negatives out of it. I think there is a few. I think Michael Keane has to do a lot better than he did. I don't think he had a bad game before then, but it looked like he tripped over his own feet. And I'm going to get this out of the way now because I want to get the tiny negatives out of the way first. But what did you think about the whole Michael Keane situation for the first goal for City?
Well, I think it would be harsh to say he didn't have a good game other than that. I thought for pretty much throughout he was very solid and City are not aerially dominant, but even so he was winning pretty much any header from the crosses that they were sending in, and that like I said that was very reassuring, and I thought throughout the game he was pretty much solid. But yeah, I said it was a mistake. I think he's got to react quicker than he does. And like you say, probably just kind of loses his balance a bit. And you think maybe a bit of a defender who's a bit quicker on his feet, someone like Godfrey, for example, a bit more composed, probably gets that away. And it's unfortunate the way it happened, but yeah, I think it has to go down as a mistake from Keane. But that's not to say that other than that he didn't have a really good performance. So yeah, it's a tricky one.
Yeah, and I think that entire defence had a brilliant performance, really. I think, like I said, Holgate really surprised me. Kenny, compared to some of the other games he had for us at left back, it's not as good. But also, we didn't have nearly as much as the ball, and the competition's much greater, so it's hard to really judge him. But, Jordan Pickford is one I want to talk about. Jordan Pickford was fantastic. I look at that one double save as the one thing that pops in my mind instantly. He seemed completely comfortable, and it is this idea that I feel like Pickford's one of those players that when there's competition, he becomes a lot better. And now with, the rise of Aaron Ramsdale at Arsenal, I think you've seen ever since that Pickford just get better and better as a keeper. And even against Man City, he never looked like conceding throughout the entire game, and I think he was unfortunate to concede. What do you think about Pickford's performance against Man City?
Yeah, it frustrates me how much stick he gets. I saw a lot of people criticising him at Southampton last week, and I don't really think either goal was his fault, really. I think it's Arsenal blaming for either of them. And I still think there's a lot of people, a lot of our fans who second, that he comes into question, he gets written off. And, it comes with any goalkeeper. It's part of the position. But I think, start of last season, he was struggling a little bit. He seemed a bit low on confidence. And then, of course, all the stuff with Virgil van Dijk happened. But I think since the start of 2021, ever since then, he's just been absolutely rock solid. And of course, he had a superb Euros. And as nothing's changed since then. He's just been as solid throughout this season. And like you say, absolutely brilliant against City, and double save in particular, like you say, really stood out. And just a really, really solid goalkeeper, and one of the least of our worries at the moment, to be honest. Based on the rest of the side, and but yeah, he always seems to be one who's singled out when we perform badly. So yeah, it's a strange one to me. I don't really understand it.
Yeah, and I think I think it just comes with the territory for Pickford. I think there's just a reason people dislike him, and I don't know why. I think it mainly is the Van Dijk thing. I think he's going to get hit with that stigma for probably most of the rest, if not the rest of his career. One mistake, and it was a mistake on his part, but everyone makes mistakes, and I don't think any of it was intentional. But fantastic performance. I think his performances for Everton, have gone under the radar since I'd say January last year, when he really started to turn things around. When I believe it was when he came back from injury, and then he just started to put in performance after performance. In my opinion, he had a case for being the best goalkeeper at the Euros, even over Donnarumma. I think there's easily a case for it. I think Donnarumma gets it because of the penalty shootout performances, and that idea it keeps Italy in it more. But the fact that we're talking Jordan Pickford and Donnarumma, and that it's debatable, kind of shows maybe the evolution of Jordan at Everton. And I think this is a game where even though we lost, you can really point at it and can go, this is what Jordan Pickford can be. Because I think he had 8 shots faced, saved 7 of them. I think I'm not the biggest fan of expected goals. I understand the point of it. I don't like to use it much, but it was like 2 point something. And he conceded 1. So, and his distribution, I think his distribution can be iffy sometimes. I think it's really good when it's at its best. But I feel like sometimes he just aims it and cannons it. Yesterday, it was yesterday. I think it was it. I'm starting to lose track of the days now. I think, he's been fantastic with that against City, especially. I think he seemed to constantly be finding his man, no matter what the pass was. And I think, if Jordan continues to perform like that, I don't think there's a chance we go down, to be honest with you. I think the chance is still there. I don't want to say that Everton are guaranteed to survive, because I just feel like that jinx it. But if we can play the way we did, before we go into more detail about the game, if we can play like that, I think, like, for example, if we play like that, Tottenham struggle and we end up taking the points against Tottenham. But I think it's now about consistency. It's about, I don't expect the team to perform like that every game, mainly because I just think it's unrealistic. I think it's just, the thing is, I don't want to come in and expect, we'll be at our best against the best, because it's a history thing with Everton, and it's the thing where you look at it and go, if I get my hopes up, I know exactly what you're going to do. But maybe this is also finally the sign that things are changing at the club and that things are going forward in a positive way. A team that can really compete at the top, not the top end of the Premier League, but against the top end of the Premier League, what we used to be. I think under Moyes, we were always a pain to play for the top teams, because it was, you could ruin our season here, lads. And we always seem to. I remember 4-4 against United. Even after Moyes, 4-0 at United, 4-0 at City, against City. So I think we've always shown we can be a team that can struggle the big teams. But I think it is also a thing of, now it becomes a string of consistency. I just want you to think, before we go into detail on the game, do you think this is the start of a string of consistency for Everton that we have lacked for years now, or do you think it's too early to say that yet?
I think it's definitely too early yet, 100%. I think it's easy to fall into this trap, and I think a lot of our fans are doing it, myself included, where we have such a good performance at home and then the next week really struggle away. And I think it's about ironing that out at first. I'm not entirely sure what it is. I don't know if it's having the crowd behind us that gives the players such a boost that they struggle when they don't have that away. But like you say, consistency is key, and that is not sustainable. Performing well every home game and then really struggling every away game, that's not a sustainable path to success, because as City showed, you can still play well at home and come away with nothing. So performance is one thing, but it is about, the most important thing, especially for us in the position we're in at the moment, is about getting the result. Obviously that comes with a good performance, but like you say, it needs to be better away from home before we can start to think about getting better. But I trust in Frank Lampard. I think, as we'll touch on, I thought his comments after the game really inspired confidence in the fans. And as I said, like, tactically, I thought he had a plan, and I think he was very unlucky for everyone involved that it didn't really come off. So I think if anyone, he's going to be the man to get us back to, like you say, the Moyes levels or even further beyond, then Frank Lampard's the man for me, I think.
Yeah, I think, we'll speak about this more when we talk about the VAR incident as well. But I think the one thing I like about Frank is he's not afraid to speak out. He's a manager who will say what he thinks and not really hold back. And I think it's probably one of the most important things for us, because I feel like a lot of our players might be scared to be criticised. I think a lot of them are. But I think Frank, he isn't afraid to criticise, but he also will offer compliments when compliments are deserved. I think you look at a player like Anthony Gordon, who has, become a different level of player this season. I do think he was good last season, but this season he's looked amazing. Especially if you compare him to the young lad who went out on loan to Preston. I think he's arguably the key player in our team. I don't think there's even I think there's an argument for other players, sorry, but I don't think anyone would disagree if you said that, because I think the thing is with Gordon now is he offers so much passion along with so much ability as it is that you really start to see a difference. And I think, he's a player who's really come into his own under Frank, even though he was performing under Rafa at times. I think a lot of players have really stepped up the game under Frank, and, we will go more into them, but I think if we just go through the team row by row, basically, of how we played 4-3-3, I think that'll just make it a lot easier. Abdoulaye Doucouré returned after, how many weeks was he out?
About a month, I think it was.
About a month out, and didn't look like he'd missed a step at all. The energy was still there, and I think he was a real problem for Man City. How do you think, especially, I think, since we'll talk about all three of them probably, how important do you think Doucouré is returning, and what looks like now this will be Frank Lampard's midfield three?
Well, yeah, I think that is definitely important. I kind of touched upon it about the more settled look in the team. I think this is going to be the formation we go with now, and I see no reason to change it. As provided them three are all fit. Doucouré, I think he seemed, to me, he seemed a little leggy at first, like first 20 minutes or so. But that's understandable after being out for so long. But yeah, he really grew into the game and showed just what we've been missing with that energy and being a threat both offensively and defensively. And yeah, it really I think it really helped out Alan and Van Der Beek. Alan in particular was absolutely superb, especially in the first half. Really stepped up his game after struggling at Southampton. And Van Der Beek continues to impress really. And yeah, it definitely looks like a much more solid midfield, and it's it's something we've been crying out for pretty much all season really, to get that 3-man midfield. And really positive to see it finally come to fruition.
Yeah, and we've been talking about a 3-man midfield for a while now. I think we've been talking about this since Rafa, in that the one big problem I feel like with us under Rafa was Rafa's own stubbornness and his inability almost to realise that a 2-man midfield will just get overloaded too much for us, and that even though Doucouré and Allen are high motor, high energy players, that doesn't mean they can take on 3 men by themselves. But if we go into Alan specifically, if you'd have told me before the game, yeah, Alan's going to back pocket Kevin De Bruyne for the first 45 minutes and shut him out of the game completely, I'd have laughed at you. Because, I'm in that camp that thinks Kevin De Bruyne is probably one of, if not still, the best midfielder in the world, especially technically. And then to say Alan, a player who's been more good than bad for Everton, but, he hasn't been amazing. I'd say he's been 7 out of 10s, and I think when it has been lower than that, some of it is out of his own control. I don't think he can help it. I think he's a fantastic player. But I think he's another player who, under Frank, is really starting to come alive. And for someone who, is probably in the final stretch of his career in terms of years, 31 years old, he's got the energy of a 24, 25-year-old. And I think his energy and his tackling ability especially, he seemed to nick the ball off De Bruyne whenever De Bruyne would touch it, is something that offers Everton so much. It might be that he's finally starting to offer us that thing that made us want Gana Gueye back in January. That ability to just win the ball quickly, to back pocket these players. And I'm not saying he's as good as Gana Gueye as that, but it does offer us something new. It offers our players more chance to get forward because they've got someone reliable in defensive midfield. Do you think it is a manager thing with Alan? Do you think it is now that Frank's in, he's the right man to get the best out of Alan? Or do you think now Alan's gotten used to the Premier League and now it's just he can be his best, basically?
It's hard to really put your finger on, but I think he's definitely someone who thrives with the more support he has. I think at the start of the season, next to Doucouré, with such a high energy player next to him, it allowed him to have a bit more freedom really, rather than being the main cog in the midfield. Next to someone like Andre Gomez, who's not as athletically gifted as him. And so, I think being next to both Doucouré and Van Der Beek will allow him to be able to express himself a bit more. And as you say, he's got defensive attributes similar to Gana Gueye, and like you say, probably not quite as good. But I think he offers a lot more going forward than Gueye did, which makes him more an all-rounded, better player probably. And he's a good dribbler. He's quick. He can cause problems for defence. And I think we saw a lot of that in that first half. And I think City were a bit taken aback by that. So yeah, definitely, I think he's someone who seems to have bought into the club as well, which it could have been very easy for once Ancelotti left, because obviously he was understandably an Ancelotti sign who had him at Napoli, but would have been easy for him to turn away and just say he wanted to leave that summer. But he seems to have bought into the club and yeah, like putting performances like he did against City, and yeah, he's probably still got quite a few years at that level in him. So yeah, encouraging to see.
Yeah, and I think before we get into it, I'd say before we get into the chat for a little bit and have a look at what they've been saying. Donnie Van Der Beek, again, another great display in my opinion. I think, one of the commentators said it, and I don't remember who the commentator was. It might have been when I was watching it in the first half, and it was Peter Drury on whatever dodgy channel it was. And it said, he couldn't establish himself in red, but he's making himself a hero in blue or something like that. And I think that's the perfect way to describe what he's doing, really. I think Donny is a player who has clear talent and clear ability, but Man United, it's just sometimes that's how it works. Clubs like Manchester United sometimes just aren't able to get the best out of players. And I think now we're seeing it with Donny, is that even if, for example, he isn't stringing 40 perfect passes together, what he is offering is energy and cover and, a desire to win that, for example, I'm not trying to dig him out, a player like Andre Gomez just doesn't have. So I think, well, put it simply, what's your opinion on Donny's time at Everton so far in general, really?
Yeah, it's been really good, and I think the fans have taken to him very quickly. As you say, he's very hardworking and industrious, and I think that's a player that fans really connect with. Someone who runs after every ball, and like he's like he's not the most technically gifted player in the world, but he can string a pass together, and if he doesn't, you know for sure he'll be chasing right back after to try and win the ball back. So yeah, that's something that fans like really respond to, and I think he seems to be buying into it as well quite a bit, especially with the images coming out after the Leeds game and stuff like that. He seems to, like you say, he hasn't had the best at time at United, and obviously it's a question of whether or not we'd be able to keep him or not. That's probably out of our control really, but he seems to be responding well, and yeah, his performances he's putting in at the moment, yeah, looks a really really good player.
Right, so we'll jump into some of the comments here because StreamYard has been glitching out for me and deciding not to show me the comments, so I've had to go on the actual YouTube video to find them. Right, so I'll scroll up a little bit. Here we go. We'll start with, I think it's Squat Madras. I think that's it. Our play from the back was much better after we pretty much abandoned that against Leeds, but had to use yesterday with no DCL to aim for. What do you think about that? The playing out from the back against a team that are really the kings of the world at doing such a thing?
Well, yeah, it was. It's a risky tactic, as you say. City have such an intense press, and it'd be so easy. Our players, especially at the back, aren't the most technically gifted. You think of your Keanes and Holgates, but as you've said, Holgate was in particular was so solid and pretty throughout was consistent with his passing and stuff. And we were, especially in the first half, really able to turn defence into attack. And yeah, as he says, having Pickford not being able to distribute to Calvert-Lewin could have cost us, but we managed to adapt to it quite well. And at no point were we really caught out with it, really. So it's something that's been our Achilles heel more than once because, as I say, we're not the most technically gifted at the back. So yeah, that was good to see.
Yeah, and there's a comment here from Phil Mason, but I'm going to save that for when we start to talk about VAR. But Squatter again, you're probably going to get 3 comments here reading the one underneath it. He said, I wasn't delighted to get Lampard, but he's been brilliant. Clearly a very intelligent guy and very well trained on the media side. Very measured and won't get caught out saying anything daft. I think a lot of us are in the same boat. You'll be able to find multiple streams where I've said I don't want Frank Lampard. You will, and I just think it's natural because I think a lot of us looked at the fact that he got sacked by Chelsea and just went, well, he got sacked. He can't have been too good. I don't think he was ready for Chelsea. I don't. And I don't think that's even an insult to him because Chelsea is one of the biggest jobs in the world. You know that after any slip up, you're going to get sacked. And I think with a club like us, I feel like he's perfect because in a sense where he'll be given an opportunity to prove himself. But then also, if he drags us to survival, that instantly boosts up his reputation. You know, he wants to play good football. He wants to use the academy. He's got good links into probably most of the clubs in England. Like, I could easily see us nicking someone like Broha or even Conor Gallagher from the other clubs just because of Frank's links to Chelsea. But, you know, how much has Frank surprised you? Because, you know, I saw you nod your head. I can imagine you're very similar to me in the fact that at first you were like, is Frank really going to be the guy for us?
Yeah, definitely. I like when the name was first being suggested. I was definitely skeptical to say the least. But I think it's got to be said as well. I think people underestimate how important having a year out of management probably is. You know, most managers, as soon as they get sacked, they're just looking at trying to get a new job as soon as possible. But I think, you know, for a manager who's at the start of his managerial career, to have a year out, you know, to really reflect on what went wrong at Chelsea. And I agree. I think he'd be the first to admit that he wasn't ready for the job so early on. I think having a year out to properly, you know, reflect on what went wrong and what he needs to improve next time, I think is really important. I think that's already starting to show, really. And I think bringing in the coaching staff that he has as well, you know, your Joe Edwards, your Ashley Coles, even Paul Clement. We've got a really stocked backroom staff as well now, which I think can only help us. And the players already seem to have more of an idea of what they're doing and responding more positively to it than they did under Benitez. So, like I said, I think the change has been instantaneous. And yeah, but week by week, I'm just warming to him more, really.
Yeah, I think scroll up a bit here to find the rest of it. You know, to string on with Frank, Amanda says here, I think that Frank will be one of the best managers we will have had. I don't know if that's in general or in the Premier League. I'm not going to question that. Under him, we can win the FA Cup and be vying for top six with good summer signings. Do you think that? Because, you know, you look at other teams who are probably smaller clubs than us, you know, overall, West Ham, Wolves, who are teams that, you know, Wolves arguably vying for the top four, especially if they hadn't had lost that game to Arsenal. West Ham slipping a bit. I think West Ham won today, though. I think West Ham beat Wolves today, actually.
I'm not entirely sure. I haven't seen.
If I have a quick look, and now everyone in the comments is going to go, here we go, Callum's Googling again in a finger. But yeah, West Ham beat Wolves 1-0. You know, you look at things like Wolves, West Ham, Leicester in the past few years. There's a few other teams that have been in and around there. You know, do you think we could be one of them who maybe can break this Big Six monopoly?
No, it's you know, it's not out of the question. I mean, you look at your typical top six, and you're eyeing someone like Tottenham. I think, you know, who seem to be in disarray despite having a relatively solid season and still being in the mix for the top four under such a good manager in Conte. But you know, you see the comments in midweek he said, and you think, you know, that is someone that could very easily be targeted as someone who's slipping out of that traditional top six. And you know, they are top clubs up there, and you know, they are pretty much separate from the rest of the league, really. But it's not out of the question, you know, like, you know, with the right recruitment and progressing forward tactically and stuff like that, you know, under Lampard, that we can at least give it a very good go into breaking that top four, definitely.
Yeah, I do think. I think it's the thing is here. Squatter again puts, you know, he agrees with you, as I am impressed with Lampard. Of, you know, the team he's brought in lots of experience, and Lampard, you know, he's not arrogant. And I think if you look at two English managers who are really impressing right now in two different leagues, you see Wayne Rooney and you see Frank Lampard. They don't claim to be the best. They don't think they're the best. They don't try to make it out. They have this idea that we still got a lot to learn. And I think both of them also do accept that maybe their playing careers have impacted where they are in their jobs. And I think they accept that, but they also know the ability they do have to become great managers, and more Lampard specifically, as he is the Everton manager right now. I think being open and honest is something that instantly will get our fans on your side. And do you think that honesty and that willingness to work hard, you know, it's almost the Everton way summed up by a player who was, let's face it, in his playing career, light years away from Everton.
Well, I mean, firstly, I like the fact you left Gerrard out of the promising young English managers, so that's a nice choice.
I think it's right now. I don't think Gerrard's getting as much hype because Villa are on a slip, but I think Gerrard is on that level. But I think if you look at the two now that are getting, I think Frank's getting the media attention more now because of the VAR thing, and Wayne obviously because if he keeps Derby up. But yeah, I think Gerrard's very good. But I think compared to them two anyway, I think you would say Gerrard's more experienced now, even if Gerrard and Lampard have been managing for a similar time, just because of, what Gerrard has had to work with basically in, a club that's set up for winning with Rangers. Because, you look at Giovanni Van Bronckhorst and you can instantly say he's already doing a better job than Gerrard. You can make that case instantly. He's just smashed Borussia Dortmund. Smashed them as well. I don't want to be biased because he's a Liverpool legend, because even if he is, you still got to respect everything he's done as a player and as a manager. But I think those three specifically are now, they're interlocked out there. They're going to be they're going to be compared back, just like Gerrard and Lampard were in their playing career. But I think right now, I think Gerrard's slip with Villa might have pushed him out of the media spotlight for a little bit.
But going back to Lampard, definitely, I think you can kind of see that hunger in him, and I believed it in from the very first press conference. You could see that he wants to get this right, because there's no doubt about it. He did fail at Chelsea, it was quite unfortunate circumstances or whatever, but the Chelsea reign didn't go as he wanted it to, so. He has come to Everton now with a point to prove, and like you say, I think he is aware that his name alone can get him in the running for some of the top jobs, but I think he still wants to get it right here, and I think he's bought into the project, and I think he's willing to give us at least a few years, if we're willing to give it to him. So, and bringing in the coaching stuff he has as well, like I say, I think that definitely seems astute and seems to as we say, really be fighting the fight for us already, and winning over the fans, and in the same way, I say, really buying into the project really.
Yeah, right. We'll do this last comment and then we'll get into the front three, and then we'll finally get into the controversy. I'll just read this out because it is quite a nice thing. It's got nothing to do with Everton, but it is quite nice. It says, "Hi guys, I'm I think it's Darlington FC fan. We were made bankrupt in 2011, reformed in 2012, demoted 4 leagues, and now we are currently a fan-owned club in the National League North, which I believe is the league just below the National League, isn't it?"
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Yeah. We have had 3 promotions to date. I don't say I know. I'm not going to claim I know much about Darlington FC, but that's something we all love to hear in football, and congrats to your club for that, Ian. But anyway, we get straight into this front three, and I think the key player we talk about here is Richarlison. I think Richarlison was fantastic. He probably should have scored. I don't think it was as bad as Sky made out. Probably should have scored it though, but I think it's his hold-up play that needs to get the most recognition for that game. Ruben Diaz and Aymeric Laporte, it's not exactly easy competition, let's just put it simply. And I think Richarlison was probably getting the better of them more than most. So what did you think about Richarlison's performance?
Yeah, I was surprised to see that. I mean, I imagine he must have been told to do that. Similar role to Calvert-Lewin, and holding up the play and and trying to feed the players around him. And I was kind of surprised he'd been given the role to do it. Like you say, you're up against big physical players in Laporte and Diaz, but yeah, they seem to be struggling with him. And I thought Laporte in particular seemed to foul Richarlison at least several times, and only some of them are picked up. But you could see him being held and being pulled back a lot. And just being that typical nuisance really. And yeah, another one of them performances where he will have been frustrated not to score, but you can just see he left absolutely everything on that pitch and chased after every ball. And that drive and willingness to win is just so typical of him. And yeah, it was really on show yesterday, especially. So yeah, that was good to see.
Yeah, and then Alex Iwobi's, a lot of the chat were just talking about them. It's a frustrating one, isn't it? Because I think the thing is with Iwobi's, I think people are starting to warm to him because of how hard he's working under Frank. But the final ball just wasn't there. And it's the one complaint we've had about him for years now. And I think, it's difficult to say because, for example, someone put it, and I agree with him. I think if we would have started Townsend, the result would have been worse, for example, than what it was. I really do. And that's not a slight on Townsend at all. But I think Iwobi does a lot of work off the ball, and I feel like that's the one thing we might have always pressed him for before, is that he just doesn't do enough work and that the final ball wasn't there. But he's working hard under Lampard, but do you still think it's going to be a problem as long as that end product isn't there?
I mean, I think if you want to talk about players that have transformed under Lampard, I think Iwobi's probably first on your list. Really, like you say, I think he's got a manager now who really believes in him. Because I mean, a young talent brought through, the English game. Obviously, he plays for Nigeria. He's born and raised in England, really. And I think, like I said, I think Lampard's really connected with him, and I think, like I say, I think his attitude's come into question like in the past before, but. I think since Lampard's come in, his work ethic's improved a lot, and he chased, like you say, off the ball, chases after stuff a lot more, and he's contributing a lot more. But as you say, it's just frustrating that that final ball's not quite there, and as much as his performances have improved of late, it still comes into question whether or not he's at the level we want to be at. So yeah. I think the jury's probably still out on that one, but he's maybe got to the end of the season to maybe prove himself. We'll see.
Yeah, and I think we spoke a bit about Anthony Gordon, and so this won't really be as long, but I think I think he had a good game. Don't think it's one of his best, but I also think he really troubled the City defense in the counter attack, and I think if we're watching someone trouble Man City, then that's always a positive. I think there is an argument that he was a player who probably could have almost scored as well. But like I said, it's Man City. It's one of the best. I think they're statistically the best defense in the league. I think they've conceded the least.
Yeah.
They've conceded the least, I'm pretty sure. But I think he was fantastic overall again. I think for a lad who, we were loaning out last season and who we were probably trying to slowly integrate into the squad, I think he's, I think so far he's probably our player of the year. I don't know if you have someone different, but for me, I think so far Anthony Gordon's our player of the year.
He's definitely up there, and I think, like you say, you touched on it earlier on. I think almost certainly our most consistent performer, definitely over the last few weeks, and he just looks so settled in the side. And like you say, I think we were probably trying to slowly break him in, but I think he's really exceeded expectations, and he's one of the first names on the team sheet at the moment. Really, he's our designated set piece taker now, of course, and came close to the free kick and had another good chance. And the confidence is just incredible. How like you say, best defense in the league. One of the most organised sides in the whole of Europe, and he has no trouble at running at them, causing them issues, and he's just getting better and better by the week, and absolutely adored by the fans, and for good reason.
Yeah. So, and then obviously off the bench, Dele Alli, El Ghazi, and Demarai Gray. Demarai Gray didn't quite look himself, but obviously the fella's just come back from an injury. I see him replacing Iwobi in the side very soon. I don't think Iwobi's going to be in the starting 11 much longer. I don't think you can bench Demarai Gray. And then the one thing about Dele Alli I'll give is I think Dele Alli, each game he plays, he's starting to look a little bit more comfortable each time. I think it's a difficult situation for him, and obviously, we don't pay any money until he's played 20 games. So it's fantastic business. And I do think, to be honest with you, I don't think we'll see the best out of Dele this season. I don't, personally. I think it'll be, if we're in the Premier League, hopefully, it'll be next season where maybe that's when he integrates himself into the side and that's when we see the best out of him. But, I don't think there's much to talk on. Dele Alli, his yellow card made me laugh, though. That will look quite funny. And he seemed passionate, I think, what did he do? He picked up John Stones' leg and waved it about or something when he was holding his leg, and then that he dislocated his finger or something like that. And even though John Stones was off the pitch, they still had play stopped. And then he decided to just roll back onto the pitch. But that entire last part of the game was completely confusing. And we're going to go into it now. Arguably one of the worst VAR calls I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's definitely up there, isn't it? I mean, the fact that like all the neutrals on Twitter like were saying the same thing. You know, you think about your Alan Shearer, Match of the Day, Gary Lineker, Gary Neville. You know, all the pundits. Like you couldn't. Only real people you saw like trying to claim it wasn't were City fans, really. You know, we even had Liverpool fans on our side, of course, because of what the result meant for their title challenge. So yeah, it's inexplicable. You know, the only real reason it wasn't given you could think of was that there was an offside in the build-up, but as Lampard said, that was confirmed to him to not be the case. So baffling, really. And you know, you hate to bring it up, but it makes it harder and harder to just look past the claims of corruption and that referees are favoured towards giving the top six the big decisions, really. Or it might just be that Chris Cavanagh's completely incompetent. So it's mind-boggling because there's no way on earth that's not a handball. It's just it's about as blatant as you can hope to get.
Yeah, I think I'll touch on this quickly about what Squatter put. The Delhi card was at the far end from us, but being told it was laughable. It was just Everton, mate, where we get penalised for the first foul we do on players. You know, it's just typical, really, where as soon as we touch someone, it's a yellow card. I think it happened twice this game as well, didn't it? Did two of our players get a yellow card? Alan as well?
Van Der Beek, I think.
Van Der Beek, that's it.
Yeah.
Because it was Van Der Beek on Laporte or something, I think, or Bernardo Silva. It was one of them two, where he touched them once and that was it. Game over. You know, I think it's it's a frustrating thing. And I think in the nicest way to not be trying to patronize people or say you're corrupt, but having two referees from Manchester, one whose family are reportedly Manchester City season ticket holders, refereeing our game or handling the VAR. Because, listen, I'm not claiming Chris Kavanagh's corrupt, but if we tried to do something completely unbiased, we would fail. As soon as Everton would get involved, we'd fail. Because in the back of your head, even subliminally, got it there eventually, you naturally favour your team. And I think that is Chris Kavanagh. I'm not trying to say the fella's awful, but whenever we're involved, he is awful. You know, I don't watch him in other games. I don't care to watch the referee in games. But whenever Chris Kavanagh is involved in an Everton game, something seems to go wrong. And, you know, I don't know why the idea of having referees from Manchester referee a Manchester club, because there's always going to be bias, even if they're trying not to. It's natural. It happens with everyone, you know. So I don't know what's going through the Premier League's head. I don't know why they didn't check the monitor. You know, they should have. You know, you look at was it the Matip goal today? That's how VAR should have been done. That's how it should be done. That is how it should work. But it's just quite funny that all these incidents seem to happen to us and they all seem to involve Chris Kavanagh. Is the Premier League match fixing towards Man City? We can't say. We can't say until a private company would do something to investigate it. But it's not a good look on City. Let's just put it simply.
Yeah, definitely not. You know, I mean, you're seeing like compilation videos yesterday of like some of the decisions they've got this season, and I mean, every club gets them. You know, every club could claim that, like, because as you say, they're always going to be biased towards their own club, and every club could say that, oh, referees don't favour them, and like, oh, the Premier League's out to get us or whatever. But like the link with Kavanagh is just crazy. You think of all the biggest like injustices against us the last couple of years, and 99% of them will involve him. You think of like going all the way back to like United, like where Calvert-Lewin's last minute disallowed goal for when Sigurdsson was lying in front of the keeper and stuff like that, and Richarlison against Tottenham earlier this season as well, penalty that wasn't given, and it may just be incompetence, but I think something maybe needs to be done about Chris Kavanagh ref in our games.
I think it becomes a problem where it's the same referee for the same team. I don't know if he just dislikes us. which is weird. You're a Man City fan. What's your dislike for Everton? You know, we're in completely different stratospheres now, lads. But I don't know. Because if I'm right, I think it was Tottenham. Was Tottenham the one where Lloris pulls Richarlison's foot and we should have got a penalty and didn't?
Yeah.
So it was against Tottenham. And they're both this season, I'm pretty sure, and both involved that fella.
Yeah.
Because now it has to be a thing where it's not Chris Kavanagh can't manage Everton. It's Chris Kavanagh gets sacked or sent back down to referee in the Championship. We need, and not every English referee is bad at their job. Some of them are decent. They're not all good. I don't think there's a single really good English referee. I do not think we have one. But some of them are Premier League standard. But I've got to say, you've got clowns like Chris Kavanagh who are just making games worse and stealing points. He's probably done it to a few other teams. I really do think he has. He's just stole points off us. Points that we could have looked at the end of the season and gone, that was vital to our survival. And yes, making the excuse that a referee not helping you against Man City doesn't work because it's the club, it was the players, the former manager's point. It's their fault we went down. But it also then makes it difficult for us to side with the referees when the referees get abused and when the referees get this and that. No one deserves to be abused. They're all trying to do their job. But it's also then very hard to not abuse Chris Kavanagh when it's just absolutely ridiculous. And, you know, I don't like to come on this channel and question people because I could never do what they do. And I can put that out. But I will say it comfortably, I could have refereed that. I could have been better on VAR than Chris Kavanagh that night. And as Frank Lampard said, his 3-year-old daughter could have done a better job. And the thing is, we went on Frank Lampard earlier and said how well he is when it comes to talking to the media. So if the man who is so well done with the media that he will never say anything controversial because he's smart comes and goes, yeah, my 3-year-old daughter could have done a better job. I think that's when you look and go, right. And you look at the praise Frank's getting because he's going to get fined for this. And he shouldn't. He shouldn't get fined at all. But he will. And I just think it's crazy because it's such a small thing that we shouldn't be able to sit here and talk for 20 minutes about it, to put it simply. But we can because of the implications it has on our season. What you saying, Carl? You couldn't see a blatant handball and say it wasn't. I can't comment on that, but to put it simply, it's just they have multiple angles as well. Because you know what? The first angle, you know what? I'm debatable, I guess. But then you look at the Wolves one, where Man City got a penalty, and you just start to piece things together and go, so why did we not get a penalty? Because, listen, I'm not saying we would have beat Man City there. We could have easily done an Everton, scored the penalty, possibly missed the penalty, and then Man City go and score 3. It's Everton. It won't surprise me. But there's now a narrative stuck to this game that if Man City win the league by a point or by 2 points, Man City had to cheat to be a team that possibly will get relegated at the end of the season. And it is crazy. And I do think there some investigation has to go onto it. Not onto Man City, to the referees and to the Premier League in general, or we need a complete reshape of the structure. Whether that means top European officials doing the games and then filtering their knowledge to younger English referees, younger Welsh referees, younger Scottish referees, Irish, whatever. So then the younger referees that come up don't become Chris Kavanagh, who can't do his job. I don't know if you disagree with me or not, but I think that's just how it should be done now.
Well, I mean, I like the idea that there should be an option after the game with whether it be with the broadcaster or whatever, where if the broadcaster says there was a big controversial decision in this game, we want to interview you after the game, and they want to speak to the referee or the VAR official, whoever they choose, and I think they should have to justify their decisions. because we just get silence. All we got after this game that they got it wrong, or what is it? They said like it was possibly handball or something like that, something really vague, like where they said, "Oh, okay, yeah, maybe we did get this wrong," but that doesn't help us if it's after the game. And like what, like, or even just mics, even if we could just hear what Chris Kavanagh is saying in the referee's ear. I can't remember the name off the top of my head. It was actually ref in the game.
Tierney, wasn't it? Paul
Oh
Tierney.
yeah, Paul Tierney. Yeah, if we can actually hear what conversation they're having in their ear, but you just know you won't, because the referees would come off terribly. I'm sure they would. It's easy to throw around corruption, and maybe they're not. But they probably aren't, or whatever. But just like any semblance of like actually knowing what's going on and what actually led Chris Kavanagh to say in his ear, "No, that's not handball. You can play on. You feel that one, right? Well done. Let's move on with the game," because it's just inexplicable to me. If it's not offside, it's handball. It's about as blatant as you can get. So it's baffling to me, and I think more communication needs to be had at the very least, or like you say, a restructuring, better education for refs coming through, or whatever, anything like that, because no other league has it as bad as this. Like everyone says in Europe that we have the worst referees by a mile.
And I think it's so bad when you consider stealing a rule from an American sport. That is how you know things are getting bad. Who put it? Wormy put here about basketball. I don't know how basketball do it, but I think I know how the NFL. Basically, if the head coach / manager of a NFL team sees something go wrong and they think, why has that not been called? They have a little yellow flag that they launch onto the field, and then it has to get reviewed. Why do we not have a thing where, even if it's just once or twice a game, we can go to the referee on the sideline and go, what's just happened there? Stop the game. Let us have it reviewed. Because let's face fact, I know it slows down the pace of the game and this and that. But in the end, if the referees are that bad at their job, they're going to leave us no other choice, because it's starting to cost teams points. And to be honest with you, I think I'd rather the league be corrupt than incompetent. Because you know what? Then at least they've got an excuse for being awful at their jobs. If they're just incompetent, then let's face facts. This league isn't the best league in the world. It's not. The quality is. The teams are. But one of the most important things in football, the referee and VAR now, it's the worst. In arguably the top 10 leagues in the world, we arguably have the worst. When you are saying, for example, the Portuguese league, the Scottish league have better refereeing standards than us, that's how you know the entire system needs to be rechanged. And I think it does need to be. I think, people, Wormy puts here, Kavanagh should be sacked. And I do think he should. I just don't, because I think it's at the point where I wouldn't even blame the club for putting a formal appeal against Chris Kavanagh and say, look, there's 4 incidents I remember on Twitter that he's all been involved with. It was this one, the Lloris one, and 2 others, I believe.
United was definitely one.
One of them might be that, and then there was another.
Yeah, I can't remember the stuff. But I know the post you're talking about. Yeah.
I think we'll probably want to wrap up soon here. So if there's any opinion you want to get on the comment, then just get them in now before we end. But I think to end our perspective on this, really, it's how can you have someone in such a vital job when they are costing people money, to put it simply? They are costing, let's put it simply, if we go down by 2 points, there is a small portion of the blame that can go on that man. There is. He won't be the key reason, but that man will be a very small factor to a relegation of a club and losing what? Hundreds of millions of pounds? And, you never know. I am probably of the crowd that if we go down and we don't come up very soon, we'll become the next Derby County. I really am a part of that crowd, because the wages, I can imagine some of the players will just sit on those wages and then it's game over after that. So it's just, after that point, it's just, we look at it and go, what do we have to do to change this? And, Squatter describes it here. It's just lunacy. We're going to go in the same circle over and over again until something's changed. And I just think the Premier League are too stubborn to change it.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, you could go on forever about like just how frustrating it is. Like, and like like I said, the thing that frustrates me most is just not knowing why these decisions were made, and the referees can just like I said, I know it opens up them up to abuse more, but I actually think if they were given a chance to justify their decisions, even if people don't agree with them, I think people would have more respect than them just shying away and like just no talk being about it, and they just move on to the next game as if nothing's happened, and I do think we should complain about Kavanagh. I mean, you think about like most high profile referee that it seemed had it in for us before, and you go back to Mark Clattenburg, and he wasn't given one of our games to referee in like for about 5 years. So I think the same could happen for that, because that was only one game. As bad as that derby was, that was just one game that led to that. We've had multiple incidents with Kavanagh now, and he just keeps getting away with it. So yeah, definitely something needs to be done in my book.
Yeah, I do think that, and I think that's where we'll read Squatter's comment here, and we'll start to read these few, because actually try to end it on a positive note, because I do think there was more positive than negatives playing wise from the game. Obviously, the one dominant story is the VAR, but I think if you look at the way the team played, the boys on the pitch, it's something we should all be proud of, and I think we're really it feels like we're starting to get our Everton back, in a sense. I don't know if you agree with me or not, but I think we're starting to get the club we loved back, not the club that felt like was being ripped away from us.
Definitely that, and I think you can just see by how much more vibrant Goodison is. It's almost like it's been let loose after being empty, of course, for about 18 months, and then having a manager that pretty much no one at the club really wanted that much, uh, and that led such poor performances for so long. Yeah, it's almost been given a new lease of life, and it's absolutely bouncing. And of course, obviously the focus at the moment is still just getting enough good, decent results that we stay up, and then you can start to kick on. And I think that's when we'll really come alive. But yeah, just the style of some of our performances, and like the more intensity, the more passion on show and stuff like that. Yeah, it definitely feels much more like the old Everton.
Yeah, and just quick before we end it, input, what would your team be for Boreham? Would you go all out or rest them? Rest them, definitely. This is a good chance to give Dobbin, Patterson, get Michaelenko back in the squad. Give a few players a chance. That might, even someone like Onyango, because Bournemouth will work hard, and I'm not going to say we're guaranteed to beat them, because that never ends well. But yeah, I think we need to do some rotation, especially give a young lad like Dobbin a chance who, last time I watched him against, I think, a National League North side, I think Bournemouth a National League, but against Bradford Park Avenue, he ripped them to shreds and scored a hat-trick off the bench, I'm pretty sure. So, he definitely deserves a chance, and I think we should not rest some, but in a sense, give others an opportunity.
Definitely that, I mean, we don't, Calvert-Lewin should definitely not be rushed back into the game. So, and you don't really want to give someone like Rondon or Tossen again, because what's the point? So, there's no other argument really against giving Dobbin a shout. And again, someone like Dele Alli, I think it'd be good for him to get a start in his tank, build up his sharpness, maybe not play the whole 90 minutes if he's not ready for that. But and who better to have behind Dobbin and Dele Alli, feeding balls in from all that. So, yeah, I think it'll be quite a changed lineup, but I hope we don't completely rest, because, as you say, you can never just say Everton will be fine and we'll win this game, because history tells us otherwise. But yeah, obviously we should have enough to beat Bournemouth on Thursday.
Yeah, right. Everyone, thank you for watching the live stream. Please make sure to leave it a like. I think I've just seen that we smashed 20 likes, so thank you all for everyone who's liked the video. Share it if you can. I know it'll be just a video after this, but if you could share it, that'd be amazing. And subscribe if you are not subscribed. Thank you all for watching this live stream, and we will both see you later.